Sierra Leone's anti-corruption commissioner, Ben Kaifala, and wife accused of $250,000 property fraud. Welcome to the Bold African Voice, BAV, where we give you in-depth analysis of the biggest stories shaping Africa today. I'm Abdul Karim Kargbo, born and raised in Africa. In this video, we explore a serious scandal unfolding in Sierra Leone. The country's anti-corruption commissioner, Ben Kaifala, and his wife, Sonia Stanley Kaifala, are facing allegations of a $250,000 property fraud. How does this impact Sierra Leone's fight against corruption? Stay tuned for a comprehensive breakdown of the case and its wider implications. Sierra Leone's anti-corruption commissioner, Ben Kaifala, and his wife, Sonia Stanley Kaifala, are at the center of a highly contentious property fraud accusation involving a $250,000 property transaction in the capital city, Freetown. Dr. Mohamed A.S. Deen, the complainant, has accused the Kaifalas of unlawfully taking control of his property at number 33 Lawrence Street, Goderic Village. This latest scandal involving high-profile government officials raises serious questions about the state of governance, accountability, and the prevalence of corruption in Sierra Leone. The allegations, a case of fraud and political influence. Dr. Deen, who claims to have been involved in a business transaction with the Kaifalas, outlines the specifics of the alleged fraud. According to Deen, in 2019, Sonia Stanley Kaifala, acting as his legal representative, structured a payment plan for the property. The plan stipulated a 50% deposit as a prerequisite for full ownership transfer. However, Deen claims that despite paying the initial amount, the Kaifalas failed to complete the transaction. Instead, they took possession of the property and developed it into their private residence. Deen also accuses the Kaifalas of leveraging their political power to retain control of the property, ignoring his repeated demands for the completion of the sale. The accusations are severe, considering Ben Kaifala's high-profile role as the country's anti-corruption commissioner, a position that demands trust, integrity, and a clear commitment to tackling corruption. Political implications and the role of power. The case draws attention not only to the alleged fraudulent activity, but also to the role of power and political influence in the broader societal and economic context of Sierra Leone. The Kaifalas are accused of using their political positions to perpetuate the alleged crime, which reflects broader patterns seen in many African countries, where political elites often manipulate the system to safeguard their personal and financial interests. Ben Kaifala's role as the anti-corruption commissioner complicates the issue. His professional mandate is to oversee the fight against corruption within government and society. If these accusations are proven true, it would undermine the credibility of the country's anti-corruption efforts, which have been lauded by international organizations such as Transparency International. It also raises broader questions about the failure of anti-corruption agencies across Africa to enforce standards for those in power. This incident, if left unaddressed, could result in a public backlash that erodes the public's faith in the institutions meant to serve their best interests. Comparisons with other African nations. This controversy in Sierra Leone is not isolated. It is part of a broader pattern of corruption allegations that often involve high-ranking officials across the continent. From Nigeria to South Africa and Kenya, African leaders have faced similar accusations of corruption, fraud, and misuse of political power. For example, in South Africa, former President Jacob Zuma faced numerous corruption charges, leading to his resignation amid public outrage and legal battles. In Kenya, former President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration faced similar claims of corruption, which many argue were handled with a lack of accountability. In countries like Nigeria, corruption scandals involving public figures are commonplace, and the legal system has often struggled to hold the elite accountable. Despite the establishment of anti-corruption bodies, such as Nigeria's Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the country continues to wrestle with corruption, especially among the political class. These cases demonstrate a recurring problem: the lack of effective checks and balances to ensure the accountability of those in power. Sierra Leone's legal system and public trust. The Sierra Leonean legal system has been improving in recent years, with increased efforts to prosecute corruption at all levels of government. However, these improvements have been marred by incidents where influential figures appear to be above the law. The accusations against Ben Kaifala are especially troubling because they challenge the integrity of one of the leading figures in the country's anti-corruption movement. If such an individual is implicated in corrupt activities, it could send a signal to the public that corruption is deeply entrenched and untouchable, even among those tasked with eradicating it. Furthermore, the lack of an official response from Sierra Leonean authorities is concerning. The government has not made any statements or announced investigations into the matter, leaving the public to speculate on whether political influence will shield the accused. This absence of transparency could further fuel perceptions of governmental inaction and complicity in corruption. A forward-looking approach. The need for reform. As Sierra Leone grapples with these allegations, there is a pressing need for reforms to ensure that public officials are held accountable, regardless of their political positions. The country's anti-corruption mechanisms must be strengthened, and greater independence should be granted to bodies such as the Anti-Corruption Commission. In the wake of this scandal, the Sierra Leonean government must take immediate steps to restore public confidence in its anti-corruption efforts. This could include an independent and transparent investigation into the allegations against Ben Kaifala and his wife, ensuring that justice is served without interference from political forces. Additionally, there is an urgent need for stronger safeguards to prevent conflicts of interest in the future. Public officials who occupy sensitive positions must be subjected to rigorous oversight to prevent abuses of power. Looking ahead, Sierra Leone could also benefit from broader political and legal reforms that address systemic issues within the country's governance structures. These reforms should be aimed at increasing transparency, strengthening institutions, and ensuring that anti-corruption measures are applied fairly and effectively. It is not enough to merely prosecute individual cases of corruption. The entire system must be reformed to make it more resistant to corruption in the first place. A test of integrity. The case involving Ben Kaifala and his wife Sonia Stanley Kaifala is a critical moment for Sierra Leone's anti-corruption movement. It serves as a reminder that, in Africa, the fight against corruption is not just about targeting petty criminals or low-level officials, but about holding powerful individuals accountable, regardless of their status or influence. The country's future as a democratic, transparent, and just society depends on how it addresses these allegations and whether it can truly enforce the rule of law without fear or favor. The story is far from over, and as Sierra Leoneans await further developments, the country's leaders must demonstrate their commitment to upholding the values of integrity, transparency, and justice that they have long championed. Only through consistent and genuine efforts to combat corruption can Sierra Leone create a more equitable and trustworthy future for all its citizens. This scandal will continue to unfold, and it remains to be seen how the authorities will handle the situation. What is clear, however, is that the country cannot afford to ignore the lessons from this case, both in terms of holding individuals accountable and reinforcing the anti-corruption efforts across all levels of government. The credibility of the Anti-Corruption Commission and the integrity of Sierra Leone's democratic institutions are at stake. Broader societal implications. The erosion of trust. The ongoing accusations against Ben Kaifala and his wife, Sonia Stanley Kaifala, if left unaddressed, could have profound societal implications for Sierra Leone. At the heart of these accusations lies a growing erosion of trust in public institutions and leaders. For years, the people of Sierra Leone have been fed promises of change, transparency, and reform. However, with the rise of corruption scandals among high-ranking officials, these promises ring increasingly hollow to a populace that has suffered the effects of a weak economy, poor public services, and limited access to justice. Public trust in the anti-corruption institutions is crucial for the success of reforms. The Kaifala case has the potential to shatter the confidence the people have placed in their governmental structures and anti-corruption efforts. If citizens begin to believe that even the most powerful bodies in the country are susceptible to political manipulation or are unwilling to hold elites accountable, it will create a dangerous precedent that could lead to widespread disillusionment. This could, in turn, foster apathy towards political engagement, further entrenching the very systems of corruption and inequality that the country struggles to overcome. This is not a unique problem to Sierra Leone. Across the African continent, nations continue to battle the pervasive issue of corruption within their political systems. From the rampant cases of corruption in Nigeria and Kenya to South Africa's ongoing struggles with state capture under former President Zuma, the continent's fight against corruption often faces setbacks due to the actions of political elites. The pattern is similar across many African nations, where the political class, despite enacting anti-corruption laws, often finds ways to avoid accountability through influence and power. As these high-profile cases continue to emerge, it becomes increasingly difficult to convince citizens that meaningful change is possible. The role of international organizations and the global community. In the context of this case, the role of international organizations and the global community cannot be overlooked. Institutions like the World Bank, the African Development Bank, and Transparency International, which have long supported anti-corruption initiatives in Africa, must continue to apply pressure on Sierra Leone's government to ensure that these allegations are properly investigated. International support in the form of technical assistance, financial aid, and governance reforms has helped to drive progress in countries like Rwanda and Botswana, which have made significant strides in improving their governance systems. However, for such reforms to be sustainable, they must be accompanied by strong domestic commitments to accountability. In Sierra Leone, these international organizations must play a critical role in maintaining pressure on the government to address this scandal transparently. Given the global nature of corruption, it is essential that anti-corruption efforts in Sierra Leone be aligned with international best practices, creating an environment where all actors, domestic and international, collaborate to reduce the prevalence of corrupt practices. This collaboration can take the form of technical expertise, funding for institutional reforms, and fostering a culture of accountability that aligns with global standards. The global community also needs to keep a watchful eye on the situation and be vocal about any attempts to suppress investigations or sweep the scandal under the rug. Given the prominence of Ben Kaifala in the international anti-corruption community, his case has garnered significant attention. The international spotlight can often serve as a deterrent against political interference, and Sierra Leone's political leadership must be reminded that the world is watching. Addressing systemic failures in governance. As the Kaifala case continues to unfold, it brings to light not only the individual actions of the accused, but also the broader systemic failures in governance. These failures go beyond just the actions of public officials. They include the functioning of key institutions meant to uphold the rule of law, such as the judiciary and anti-corruption agencies. For Sierra Leone to break free from cycles of corruption and bad governance, it must address the deeper institutional weaknesses that allow such behaviors to go unchecked. First and foremost, Sierra Leone must strengthen its legal and judicial systems. The rule of law cannot be upheld if the legal system is either weak or unable to independently and impartially prosecute cases of corruption. Reforms are needed to ensure that cases involving high-profile figures are not subject to political manipulation or undue influence. This may include greater judicial independence, improved training for law enforcement, and more robust anti-corruption measures to safeguard the legal process from outside interference. Additionally, the country must implement systemic reforms within the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, itself. While the ACC plays a crucial role in prosecuting corrupt practices, its ability to operate effectively has often been compromised by limited resources, insufficient autonomy, and political interference. For it to succeed, The ACC must be provided with the resources and independence to operate without fear of reprisal, ensuring that no individual, regardless of their political influences beyond the reach of justice, is crucial for fostering a culture of accountability. Further, public service reform is an essential part of tackling corruption. In many African nations, including Sierra Leone, the public sector remains underfunded, overstaffed, and often riddled with inefficiencies. By focusing on improving governance at the local level, increasing transparency in the management of state resources, and empowering civil society to play a more active role in monitoring government activities, Sierra Leone can begin to create an environment where corruption is harder to conceal and easier to expose. Looking ahead, a call for comprehensive anti-corruption strategies. The case against Ben Kaifala and his wife Sonia Stanley Kaifala is more than just an isolated scandal. It is a flashpoint in the larger struggle for effective governance in Sierra Leone. For the country to overcome the endemic corruption that has held it back for decades, it must embrace comprehensive anti-corruption strategies that address both individual wrongdoing and the systemic challenges that enable such practices to thrive. These strategies should include institutional reforms, increased transparency, improved governance, and public education campaigns that empower citizens to demand accountability from their leaders. Additionally, the government must establish stronger legal frameworks that ensure that those who break the law are held accountable, irrespective of their political power or position. Sierra Leone's future hinges on the outcome of this case and the broader lessons that can be learned from it. The country is at a crossroads, and it must choose whether to confront corruption head-on or allow it to fester unchecked. Only through a united effort, involving both government institutions and civil society, can Sierra Leone hope to achieve lasting change and truly rid itself of the scourge of corruption. The role of civil society in holding power to account. As Sierra Leone faces these accusations against its anti-corruption commissioner and his wife, the role of civil society organizations, CSOs, and ordinary citizens becomes increasingly vital. CSOs have played an instrumental role in monitoring government activity, advocating for transparency, and pushing for legal reforms across Africa. In Sierra Leone, groups such as the Institute for Governance Reform, IGR, and the Sierra Leone Bar Association have historically been at the forefront of promoting transparency and fighting corruption. These organizations have the power to demand greater accountability from public officials, including those implicated in the current scandal. One of the critical functions of CSOs is to ensure that the voices of ordinary citizens are heard and that their interests are represented in the political sphere. This is particularly important in cases like the Kaifalas scandal, where there is a clear power imbalance. By calling for public hearings, organizing protests, and engaging in media campaigns, CSOs can help ensure that the matter does not disappear from public discourse. Moreover, they can help educate the public about the implications of the case, offering guidance on how to demand transparency and hold those in power accountable. Sierra Leone's vibrant media, including outlets like the African Voice and Salone News, also plays a crucial role in exposing corruption. Investigative journalists have the potential to uncover further details about the case and hold the authorities accountable for any attempt to cover it up. The press must maintain its independence, free from government pressure or political interference, to report on such matters without fear of reprisal. Moreover, it is essential that media outlets and CSOs collaborate to create a platform for the public to report corruption and demand action. This synergy between the media, civil society, and the public can result in a powerful collective force that not only seeks justice for individual cases, but also fosters a broader culture of accountability. If the public sees that its voice matters, there will be greater pressure on the political class to act in the people's best interests, thus reducing the opportunities for corruption. Analyzing the international community's role. How global support can help beyond Sierra Leone, the international community has a vested interest in ensuring that justice is served. Africa's anti-corruption efforts are often challenged by global networks that enable illicit financial flows. The role of international bodies like the United Nations, UN, the African Union, AU, and the World Bank in providing technical assistance to Sierra Leone's anti-corruption initiatives is crucial. These institutions can offer expertise in building strong legal frameworks, supporting independent institutions, and ensuring that corruption-related cases are not sidetracked by political interference. International cooperation in the area of financial intelligence can also play a pivotal role. For instance, Sierra Leone could work more closely with international financial bodies like the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to combat money laundering and illicit financial flows, which often accompany corruption scandals. Tracking and freezing illicit funds and assets is a critical tool in ensuring that corruption does not pay off for those involved. In the case of the Kaifala scandal, international pressure to trace any foreign investments or illicit transfers related to the property could further strengthen the case and prevent the accused from using global financial systems to conceal their activities. Additionally, there is an opportunity for Sierra Leone to deepen its engagement with international anti-corruption frameworks such as the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, a self-monitoring initiative within the African Union. While it is primarily a tool for improving governance across the continent, the APRM could be instrumental in helping Sierra Leone create stronger anti-corruption policies that hold officials accountable. The APRM's peer review process involves assessments of member states' governance practices, and Sierra Leone could benefit from the recommendations and scrutiny of its peers on matters of corruption and public governance. The engagement of international watchdogs like Transparency International and the Open Society Foundations also plays an essential role in maintaining global pressure on governments to take corruption seriously. By supporting civil society efforts and conducting independent monitoring, these organizations provide an international lens through which Sierra Leone can be held accountable. This type of global engagement serves as a deterrent to corrupt practices, as it underscores the understanding that these issues are not only local problems, but global ones, with far-reaching consequences. What the case means for anti-corruption strategies in Africa. The Kaifala case is not only a test for Sierra Leone, it is a litmus test for the broader African continent's commitment to eradicating corruption. Across Africa, similar challenges persist, with anti-corruption commissions often failing to carry out investigations into high-profile cases of misconduct. Many African countries, despite having anti-corruption bodies, continue to struggle with the implementation of effective governance and transparency measures. The trend of impunity among political elites continues to undermine citizens' trust in their governments. One of the significant challenges in fighting corruption in Africa is the lack of political will. In many cases, governments have shown little commitment to holding their own accountable, often turning a blind eye to the misconduct of powerful figures. This challenge is compounded by a lack of institutional capacity within anti-corruption agencies, whose efforts are often stymied by underfunding, insufficient personnel, and political interference. Sierra Leone has made some progress over the years in establishing institutions designed to combat corruption, but the Kaifala case highlights the ongoing difficulties in prosecuting high-ranking officials. The situation is indicative of the broader challenges African nations face in reforming institutions and making anti-corruption efforts more than just symbolic. Countries need to go beyond the creation of commissions and agencies and invest in building independent, well-resourced institutions that can carry out their duties without fear of retaliation. For Sierra Leone to break the cycle of impunity and demonstrate a genuine commitment to reform, the Kaifala case must serve as a catalyst for wider change. The country must continue to strengthen its legal and judicial systems, ensure that the Anti-Corruption Commission can operate without political interference, and provide the resources necessary to support the effective prosecution of corruption cases. Furthermore, the country must confront the underlying factors that perpetuate corruption, such as weak public sector management and a lack of accountability in government operations. The importance of public accountability in preserving democracy. Public accountability is a cornerstone of any functioning democracy, and this case underscores the importance of ensuring that those who occupy positions of power are held to the highest standards of conduct. In Sierra Leone, as in many other African nations, the fight against corruption is not just about addressing the wrongdoings of individual officials, but about preserving the democratic values that underpin society. If citizens are to have faith in their leaders and institutions, they must believe that those in positions of power are subject to the same laws as everyone else. Ultimately, this case is a critical moment for Sierra Leone, as it offers an opportunity to not only address the actions of one individual, but also to reinforce the country's commitment to transparency, fairness, and justice. The outcome of the case could set an important precedent for how future corruption allegations are handled and signal to both the public and international community that Sierra Leone is serious about rooting out corruption, regardless of the individual's status or political influence. With the nation's political stability, democratic integrity, and future governance at stake, it is imperative that Sierra Leone's leaders take this opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to upholding the law and restoring the public's faith in its institutions. If the government acts decisively and transparently, it could pave the way for meaningful reforms that benefit not only Sierra Leone, but also provide a model for other African nations grappling with similar challenges. The impact of the case on future anti-corruption efforts in Sierra Leone. As the allegations surrounding Francis Ben Kaifala and his wife, Sonia Stanley Kaifala, continue to unfold, they represent a critical juncture for Sierra Leone's anti-corruption movement. The resolution of this case could set an important precedent, not only for the country's legal system, but for the future of anti-corruption initiatives. If the case is handled with integrity, transparency, and accountability, it could reignite public trust in the country's ability to root out corruption at the highest levels. Conversely, if it is mishandled or swept under the rug, it could spell disaster for the credibility of the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, and further entrench the belief that corruption is an indomitable force in Sierra Leonean politics. For future anti-corruption efforts to succeed in Sierra Leone, this case must be used as an opportunity for self-reflection and institutional overhaul. Anti-corruption bodies must not only be empowered to act, but must also be provided with the necessary resources to operate effectively. The lessons learned from this case could inform the strengthening of the ACC's independence, operational capacity, and ability to respond to allegations involving powerful figures without fear of reprisal. Moreover, the legal system in Sierra Leone must undergo reforms to ensure that corruption cases involving high-ranking officials are given the attention they deserve. A judiciary that operates with full independence from political influence is essential for the country to combat corruption in a meaningful way. Without judicial reforms, the fight against corruption will remain hampered, as those who hold power will continue to find ways to evade justice. Additionally, Sierra Leone should consider expanding public participation in the anti-corruption process. Public engagement in oversight mechanisms such as participatory budgeting or community-level audits of government spending can help hold officials accountable at all levels of government. By involving the public more directly in the governance process, Sierra Leone can reduce the opportunities for corruption to thrive and build a more resilient democratic system. A new vision for governance and institutional reform. The current situation offers an important opportunity for Sierra Leone to set a new trajectory for governance. The corruption scandals involving high-ranking officials, including the Kaifala case, should serve as a call to action for systemic reforms that go beyond punishing individual acts of corruption. These reforms should address the structural vulnerabilities that allow corruption to proliferate in the first place. One key area of focus should be the strengthening of transparency and accountability measures across all branches of government. This could include the establishment of a national registry for public officials' assets and investments, which would allow citizens to track the wealth and financial dealings of their leaders. By making public officials' assets and income transparent, it would be more difficult for individuals in positions of power to amass wealth through corrupt means. Sierra Leone could also benefit from improving its public procurement processes. One of the major areas where corruption thrives is in the awarding of government contracts. By making the bidding process more transparent, implementing stricter oversight, and ensuring that contracts are awarded based on merit and competitive pricing, the government can reduce the opportunity for officials to use their positions for personal gain. Public procurement should be an area of focus for reform in Sierra Leone's anti-corruption efforts, as it remains one of the most vulnerable sectors for corrupt practices. Furthermore, the civil service should be professionalized, with an emphasis on merit-based recruitment and career development. Ensuring that government employees are selected based on their qualifications and experience, rather than political affiliation, will help build a public sector that is committed to serving the public good, rather than personal or party interests. By addressing the root causes of corruption and fostering a culture of professionalism and service within the civil service, Sierra Leone can create a stronger, more accountable state. The importance of strong political leadership. While institutional reforms and public participation are essential to the fight against corruption, strong political leadership is equally critical. Sierra Leone's leaders must demonstrate a genuine commitment to ending the culture of impunity that has persisted for decades. For this to happen, leaders must not only hold corrupt officials accountable, but must also model ethical behavior and integrity themselves. The Kaifala case is an opportunity for the government to demonstrate that no one, no matter their position or political affiliation, is above the law. The current administration must be proactive in signaling its commitment to fighting corruption. This can be achieved by taking swift and decisive action in response to the Kaifala scandal. Delaying or downplaying the seriousness of the allegations will only fuel skepticism and contribute to the perception that corruption is an entrenched feature of Sierra Leonean politics. On the other hand, taking bold steps to address this case will help restore faith in the government's commitment to anti-corruption efforts and send a powerful message to the public that the rule of law applies to everyone. Additionally, political leaders in Sierra Leone must work towards fostering a culture of political accountability. This involves encouraging opposition parties, civil society organizations, and the media to play an active role in holding the government accountable. A vibrant, active political ecosystem where dialogue and debate are encouraged can help ensure that corruption remains in the public eye and that those in power are continuously challenged to act in the best interest of the country. Regional and continental perspectives. Learning from Africa's struggles. While Sierra Leone faces its unique challenges, it is not alone in grappling with corruption within its political elite. Across Africa, many countries have struggled to combat corruption at the highest levels of government. For example, in Nigeria, the fight against corruption has been a central issue for years, with notable cases such as the 2015 prosecution of former oil minister Diezani Alison Madueke for money laundering. Similarly, in Kenya, former President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration was dogged by allegations of corruption, despite the creation of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. One of the key lessons from other African countries is that while anti-corruption commissions and legal frameworks are essential, they cannot function effectively without the political will to implement the laws. In many African countries, despite the existence of anti-corruption institutions, systemic corruption persists due to the failure of political leaders to fully embrace the principles of transparency, accountability, and justice. Sierra Leone can draw inspiration from countries like Rwanda, which has made significant strides in reducing corruption. Through a combination of strong political leadership, institutional reform, and public engagement, Rwanda has been able to establish a more transparent and accountable governance system. Although Rwanda's success is not without its challenges and criticisms, it demonstrates that progress is possible when leaders are committed to change. Sierra Leone can also look to Botswana, widely regarded as one of the least corrupt countries in Africa. Botswana's success lies in its strong democratic institutions, a transparent and accountable public service, and effective checks and balances. For Sierra Leone to achieve similar success, it must prioritize the strengthening of its institutions and the development of a more open and accountable government. A crucial moment for Sierra Leone's democratic future. Ultimately, the outcome of the Kaifala case will have far-reaching implications for Sierra Leone's democratic trajectory. The country is at a crossroads, facing the opportunity to reaffirm its commitment to democratic values or to allow corruption to persist as a stain on its future. The actions taken now, both in the courtroom and in the corridors of power, will determine whether Sierra Leone can emerge from this scandal stronger and more committed to the principles of justice and accountability, or whether it will become another example of how corruption undermines the dreams of a continent in search of lasting change. As the investigation continues, it is essential that all stakeholders, government officials, civil society, the media, and the public remain engaged, ensuring that the pursuit of justice does not fall prey to political influence or corruption. The people of Sierra Leone deserve nothing less than full transparency and accountability in this case, and the government has a moral obligation to demonstrate its resolve in addressing this grave issue. The road to a more just and transparent Sierra Leone begins here, and it is up to the leadership to decide whether they will rise to the occasion, strengthening public institutions, a path forward for Sierra Leone. As Sierra Leone confronts the corruption allegations against one of its most prominent public figures, the country is presented with a unique opportunity to reflect on the effectiveness of its existing institutions and the reforms needed to ensure that they function as intended. The ongoing case against Ben Kaifala and Sonia Stanley Kaifala serves as a critical moment for the country to assess the robustness of its institutional framework, particularly in the fight against corruption. One area that requires urgent attention is the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, itself. For an anti-corruption body to be truly effective, it must not only be well-resourced, but also be insulated from political pressures. If the ACC is to stand a chance in tackling corruption at the highest levels, it must operate with complete autonomy. This can be achieved by enacting stronger laws that guarantee the independence of the Commission, as well as ensuring that it is adequately funded to carry out its investigative and prosecutorial functions. Furthermore, as we have seen with other African nations, the success of anti-corruption efforts often hinges on the ability of public institutions to collaborate with each other and with external partners. The ACC, judicial system, and law enforcement must work together in a seamless manner to ensure that corruption is detected, prosecuted, and punished effectively. In Sierra Leone, there needs to be a push for stronger collaboration among various government agencies, civil society, and international partners to close the gaps that allow corruption to flourish. Additionally, civil society organizations, CSOs, in Sierra Leone have a critical role to play in supporting institutional reforms and advocating for greater transparency and accountability within the public sector. By empowering civil society, the country can foster a more inclusive process where ordinary citizens can hold government institutions accountable for their actions. Building trust between citizens and the government requires open dialogue, transparency, and effective channels through which citizens can report cases of corruption without fear of retaliation. In this regard, Sierra Leone could benefit from establishing independent oversight bodies, including those focused on public procurement and budgeting. These bodies could help to ensure that funds allocated for public services and development are spent as intended, without diversion into the pockets of corrupt officials. Providing citizens with access to budgetary and financial information would allow them to better understand how public funds are being used, encouraging public scrutiny and participation in governance. Public education and raising awareness. The fight against corruption in Sierra Leone will also require a broad-based public education campaign aimed at raising awareness about the harmful effects of corruption on society. Although Sierra Leone has made strides in educating the public about the importance of transparency and good governance, much more needs to be done to cultivate a culture of integrity at the grassroots level. This includes educating citizens on their rights, encouraging them to report corruption, and fostering a collective sense of responsibility towards building a more equitable society. Such educational initiatives could be integrated into the national curriculum, starting from a young age, to instill values of honesty, fairness, and respect for the rule of law. Public service announcements, media campaigns, and community outreach programs can also be employed to sensitize the population about the dangers of corruption and the need for collective action in upholding democratic values. One example that Sierra Leone could look to is the successful anti-corruption education campaigns in countries like Botswana and Rwanda. These countries have made significant progress in promoting anti-corruption values within their societies through comprehensive educational initiatives and public engagement campaigns. Sierra Leone can learn from these models by implementing locally tailored campaigns that resonate with the unique challenges faced by its people. International cooperation in tackling corruption. Beyond local reforms, international cooperation remains a crucial component of Sierra Leone's efforts to combat corruption. Corruption is not confined to national borders, and its effects often extend far beyond a country's boundaries. In many instances, corrupt individuals use international financial systems to conceal illicit wealth, launder money, and evade justice. This is where international partnerships play a vital role. Sierra Leone must strengthen its cooperation with international organizations such as the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, which provide technical assistance in the fight against corruption. By engaging with these bodies, Sierra Leone can gain access to best practices, funding, and expertise needed to bolster its anti-corruption framework. Moreover, Sierra Leone can take advantage of existing frameworks for international cooperation on issues of financial transparency, such as the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, and the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, EITI. These organizations offer guidelines and support for enhancing transparency in the public and private sectors, particularly in industries prone to corruption, such as mining and infrastructure. International cooperation can also help Sierra Leone recover assets stolen through corruption and hidden abroad, thereby sending a strong message to corrupt individuals that illicit financial flows will not go unpunished. Additionally, strengthening bilateral and multilateral agreements with other African countries can help Sierra Leone track cross-border financial transactions that may involve illicit funds. Many African countries, such as Nigeria and Kenya, have faced similar challenges with public officials using offshore accounts and other illicit mechanisms to hide wealth. By building stronger networks with other African nations and global law enforcement agencies, Sierra Leone can help prevent the outflow of stolen resources and ensure that those who engage in corrupt practices are held accountable, no matter where their ill-gotten gains are hidden. The role of the diaspora, a catalyst for change. Sierra Leone's diaspora community can also play an instrumental role in supporting the country's anti-corruption efforts. With a large and engaged population living abroad, the Sierra Leonean diaspora has the resources and networks to influence change at home. The diaspora can help by raising awareness about corruption issues, advocating for greater transparency, and mobilizing financial and political support for reform efforts. Moreover, the diaspora can play a critical role in the development of anti-corruption initiatives by supporting Sierra Leone's civil society organizations, media outlets, and institutions that work towards good governance. Diaspora communities can also serve as a bridge between Sierra Leone and the international community, helping to attract foreign investment and promoting business practices that are rooted in integrity and transparency. In the case of the Kaifalas scandal, members of the Sierra Leonean diaspora can amplify the issue by calling for international support and exerting pressure on the government to act. Their collective voice can serve as a powerful force, holding Sierra Leone's political leadership accountable on the global stage. The economic cost of corruption. Beyond the immediate political implications, the economic cost of corruption cannot be overstated. Corruption acts as a significant barrier to economic growth, development, and job creation in Sierra Leone. Misallocation of resources, The diversion of public funds and the lack of transparency in state contracts all contribute to inefficiency and stagnation in key sectors such as infrastructure, health, and education. In the long run, persistent corruption undermines investor confidence, making it more difficult for Sierra Leone to attract foreign direct investment. Investors are less likely to commit capital to a country where corruption is pervasive and where the rule of law is uncertain. This creates a vicious cycle in which corruption stifles economic growth, and the lack of economic opportunities perpetuates social inequality and poverty. The current case, if it leads to tangible reforms, could serve as a turning point in the fight against corruption in Sierra Leone. By addressing corruption at the highest levels and implementing systemic reforms, Sierra Leone has the potential to unlock its economic potential and create a more equitable and prosperous future for its citizens. The road ahead: accountability, reforms, and hope for change. As Sierra Leone navigates the complexities of the Kaifala case, the country stands at a crossroads in its efforts to tackle corruption and strengthen democratic governance. This case presents both a challenge and an opportunity to prove that no individual, regardless of political status, is beyond the reach of the law. How the government responds, and whether it demonstrates the political will to address corruption, will shape the country's future trajectory. The road ahead for Sierra Leone is not an easy one, but it is not without hope. By embracing comprehensive reforms, strengthening public institutions, and fostering a culture of accountability, Sierra Leone can move closer to realizing the dream of a fair, transparent, and prosperous society. Through bold action, national unity, and the engagement of civil society, the fight against corruption can lead to meaningful change, transforming Sierra Leone into a beacon of hope for the rest of Africa. As the investigation into the Kaifala case continues, all eyes will be on Sierra Leone. The outcome will not only affect the country's immediate political landscape, but also have a profound impact on the ongoing struggle for transparency, justice, and accountability across the African continent. Transforming public trust, restoring confidence in Sierra Leone's government. As Sierra Leone grapples with the corruption allegations surrounding Ben Kaifala, the country faces a critical opportunity to rebuild and restore public trust in its government. Trust in government institutions is the bedrock of any functioning democracy, and when corruption scandals such as this one emerge, they threaten to erode the public's faith in their leaders and the institutions that are meant to serve them. This case represents an important test, not just for the individuals involved, but for the broader integrity of the nation's governance system. Restoring public trust will require a multifaceted approach, starting with transparency in the investigation itself. The public must be assured that the case will be handled fairly and independently, without political interference. This requires the involvement of an impartial judiciary that is equipped to deal with cases involving high-ranking public figures, as well as a robust and well-resourced anti-corruption commission that can carry out its duties without fear of reprisal. Beyond this specific case, Sierra Leone must implement broad reforms aimed at restoring trust in government institutions. This means ensuring that all government bodies, from the judiciary to law enforcement to public service agencies, operate with complete transparency and accountability. There must be a clear mechanism for citizens to report corruption and for their complaints to be heard and acted upon. Citizens should feel confident that their voices matter and that their government is working for them, not for political elites. To achieve this, it is essential that the government actively engage in dialogue with the public. Open forums, town hall meetings, and media campaigns can serve as platforms for citizens to voice their concerns and for the government to demonstrate its commitment to tackling corruption. By fostering an environment where citizens feel empowered to challenge corruption and demand accountability, Sierra Leone can take a significant step toward re-establishing trust between the people and the government. Strengthening political will and leadership accountability. Political will is one of the most critical factors in the fight against corruption, and it must be seen in action. Sierra Leone's political leaders must demonstrate a clear and unambiguous commitment to fighting corruption, not only by prosecuting those accused of wrongdoing, but also by leading by example. If the leadership is to regain the public's trust, It must embody the values of integrity and accountability that it demands of others. To this end, the government must put in place mechanisms that ensure that all public officials, from the president to local government officials, are held accountable for their actions. This includes mandatory asset declarations, strict penalties for corruption, and the establishment of clear rules for public officials regarding conflicts of interest and personal enrichment. Leaders should be required to make public declarations about their personal wealth and any business interests they may have, ensuring transparency and reducing opportunities for conflicts of interest. At the same time, the country's political leadership must actively support efforts to professionalize the civil service. By ensuring that government officials are selected based on merit and qualifications rather than political patronage, Sierra Leone can build a more competent and reliable public service that is less susceptible to corrupt practices. Political leadership in Sierra Leone must demonstrate a willingness to make tough decisions, even when those decisions are unpopular, if it is to restore its credibility in the eyes of the public. A fundamental aspect of strengthening political will is ensuring that there is a clear and public stance on accountability from both the executive and legislative branches of government. The current case involving Ben Kaifala presents an opportunity for the government to send a strong signal to the public that it is serious about holding all individuals accountable, regardless of their position or influence. This can be done by ensuring that the case is pursued with the same vigor as any other, and that the findings are made public so that the people can see that justice has been served. International support, a collaborative approach to anti-corruption. While the primary responsibility for tackling corruption rests with the government of Sierra Leone, international organizations can play a crucial role in supporting the country's efforts. The international community, through bodies such as the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, Transparency International, and the African Union, can provide valuable technical assistance, funding, and expertise in strengthening Sierra Leone's anti-corruption institutions. One of the key challenges in combating corruption is ensuring that those responsible for illicit activities do not simply move their ill-gotten wealth abroad. To combat this, Sierra Leone must collaborate with international financial institutions and law enforcement agencies to track, freeze, and recover stolen assets. The country should also strengthen its participation in global anti-money laundering efforts, which are essential for preventing corrupt officials from hiding their wealth in foreign banks or through complex financial networks. In addition to international support for legal and financial reforms, Sierra Leone can also benefit from global best practices in the areas of governance, transparency, and anti-corruption. By participating in international forums and peer review mechanisms, the country can learn from the experiences of other nations that have successfully tackled corruption. The African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM, for example, offers a platform for countries to evaluate their governance practices and share lessons learned. Sierra Leone's active participation in such initiatives will demonstrate its commitment to transparency and the rule of law on the global stage. International support can also come in the form of diplomatic pressure. The global community can hold Sierra Leone's government accountable by raising concerns over corruption and demanding action in international forums. International actors can also help ensure that the country's anti-corruption efforts are properly funded, so that the necessary reforms can be implemented effectively. A vision for a more transparent and accountable future. Looking forward, Sierra Leone has a unique opportunity to lead the way in Africa's fight against corruption by leveraging this scandal as a catalyst for systemic change. To achieve lasting reform, the country must take a comprehensive approach that includes strengthening institutions, engaging civil society, and promoting transparency and accountability across all sectors of governance. This is not only about addressing the actions of one individual or family, but about creating a broader environment where corruption is no longer tolerated and public officials are held to the highest standards. In addition to legal and institutional reforms, Sierra Leone must also work to promote ethical leadership at all levels of government. This can be achieved through the establishment of leadership training programs that emphasize the importance of integrity and public service. By fostering a new generation of leaders committed to good governance, Sierra Leone can gradually transform its political culture and reduce the likelihood of corruption taking root in the future. It is also essential that Sierra Leone invest in public education to raise awareness about the importance of transparency and the negative effects of corruption on society. Empowering citizens with the knowledge and tools they need to challenge corrupt practices will strengthen the country's democratic foundations and ensure that future generations understand the value of integrity in governance. The path to national healing and reconciliation. Ultimately, the fight against corruption in Sierra Leone is about more than just punishing wrongdoers. It is about building a nation based on the principles of justice, equity, and fairness. The country has endured significant challenges in its recent history, from the brutal civil war to the Ebola outbreak, and it must now focus on healing and rebuilding. Tackling corruption head-on is a crucial part of this process, as it will ensure that the country's resources are used for the benefit of all Sierra Leoneans, rather than enriching a small elite. The process of national healing and reconciliation must be inclusive, with a focus on addressing the root causes of inequality and poverty that allow corruption to thrive. By addressing the social and economic disparities that persist within Sierra Leone, the government can create a more just society where the rule of law is respected and corruption is no longer seen as a necessary means of survival. While the path ahead may be difficult, it is not without hope. Sierra Leone has a vibrant civil society, a growing youth population, and a wealth of natural resources that, if managed properly, can drive the country's development. By committing to transparent governance, strengthening institutions, and embracing a culture of accountability, Sierra Leone can set itself on a path towards sustainable development and long-term prosperity. As the investigation into the Kaifala case continues, it is essential that all involved parties remain focused on the broader goal of strengthening the country's democratic institutions and ensuring that Sierra Leone emerges as a beacon of good governance and anti-corruption in Africa. The road to reform may be long, but it is a journey worth undertaking for the future of Sierra Leone and its people. Building a stronger civil society, the power of grassroots movements. One of the critical elements of ensuring that Sierra Leone's anti-corruption efforts succeed is a strong and empowered civil society. Grassroots organizations, community leaders, and ordinary citizens have the power to drive change from the bottom up, often serving as a check on government power and holding public officials accountable. In Sierra Leone, civil society groups such as the Campaign for Good Governance, CGG, and the Sierra Leone Network on the Right to Education, SLNRE, have been instrumental in pushing for greater transparency, promoting democratic values, and calling out corruption. These organizations have been the backbone of many public campaigns and have given the people of Sierra Leone a platform to voice their concerns. However, for these organizations to function effectively in the fight against corruption, they need the space and resources to operate freely and independently. This includes protection from harassment, access to funding, and the ability to engage in advocacy without fear of retaliation. A vibrant civil society is crucial in helping the public monitor government actions, raise awareness about corruption, and demand justice when wrongdoings are exposed. Moreover, grassroots movements can act as a bridge between government institutions and the wider population. By working with marginalized groups, these organizations can help raise awareness about corruption at the local level and ensure that the voices of the most vulnerable are heard. These movements can also help to educate the public about their rights and the importance of holding public officials accountable, thus fostering a culture of transparency and participation. For Sierra Leone's anti-corruption efforts to succeed, it is essential that the government actively supports and collaborates with civil society. A collaborative approach, where both government institutions and grassroots organizations work together toward common goals, will help to create an environment where corruption is seen as unacceptable by all levels of society. The public must feel empowered to report corruption and believe that their complaints will be taken seriously. Strengthening Sierra Leone's media sector. The media also plays an indispensable role in Sierra Leone's fight against corruption. Investigative journalism has long been a powerful tool for exposing wrongdoings, and media outlets in Sierra Leone have been at the forefront of uncovering cases of corruption in both the public and private sectors. However, the media's ability to operate effectively is often constrained by political pressure, financial limitations, and, in some cases, threats to journalists' safety. For the media to continue playing its critical role, it must be protected from these pressures. The government of Sierra Leone must ensure that freedom of the press is upheld and that journalists can investigate and report on corruption without fear of retaliation. The government must also provide support for independent media outlets and investigative journalism projects. Media organizations that focus on uncovering corruption should be given access to the resources and training they need to carry out in-depth investigations and hold public figures accountable. Moreover, media organizations should be encouraged to collaborate with civil society groups, creating a network of organizations dedicated to promoting transparency and accountability. Through such partnerships, investigative journalists can uncover the truth behind corruption cases, amplify the voices of victims, and demand action from authorities. In addition, the media should work to engage the public in discussions about the importance of anti-corruption initiatives and educate citizens about the detrimental impact of corruption on their lives. Media campaigns, including documentaries, talk shows, and news reports, can be effective tools in shaping public opinion and garnering support for anti-corruption policies. Sierra Leone's media landscape has the potential to be a powerful force for change, but it must be protected and empowered to fulfill this role. Journalists must be allowed to work independently, free from political interference and threats. Only through strong and independent media can Sierra Leone's people be properly informed about the state of corruption and be mobilized to demand the reforms necessary to bring about lasting change. Expanding anti-corruption legislation and enforcement. For Sierra Leone to effectively combat corruption, it is crucial that the legal framework surrounding corruption prevention and punishment be strengthened. While Sierra Leone has established some important anti-corruption laws, such as the Anti-Corruption Act of 2008, there remains room for improvement in terms of enforcement and the scope of legislation. One area that requires attention is the establishment of more comprehensive laws aimed at asset recovery and money laundering. These laws would provide the legal means for authorities to track illicit financial flows, seize stolen assets, and return them to the people. As the Kaifala case demonstrates, corrupt officials often find ways to hide their wealth abroad, making it difficult for national authorities to hold them accountable. By strengthening laws related to financial transparency and asset tracking, Sierra Leone can better ensure that corrupt individuals do not escape justice by moving their wealth overseas. In addition, the country's whistleblower protection laws should be enhanced. Whistleblowers play a key role in exposing corruption, but they are often reluctant to come forward due to fear of retaliation. Providing stronger legal protection for whistleblowers, including legal immunity and safeguards against dismissal or harassment, will encourage more individuals to speak out against corrupt practices without the threat of personal or professional repercussions. Sierra Leone must also ensure that its anti-corruption agencies, particularly the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC, have the necessary powers and resources to carry out investigations and prosecute corrupt individuals effectively. This includes increasing the capacity of the ACC to conduct complex financial investigations, providing training to investigators and prosecutors, and ensuring that the agency operates independently of political influence. Only with a well-resourced and independent ACC can Sierra Leone hope to tackle corruption at all levels of government and society. In the future, Sierra Leone should also work to ensure that its laws and policies are aligned with international standards and best practices. This includes strengthening its commitment to global initiatives such as the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, and the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption. By adhering to these international standards, Sierra Leone will demonstrate its commitment to fighting corruption and building a transparent, accountable, and democratic state. The role of the judiciary in upholding the rule of law. In any fight against corruption, judiciary plays a crucial role in ensuring that justice is served. In Sierra Leone, the independence of the judiciary is essential to maintaining public trust in the legal system and ensuring that corruption is punished. If the judiciary is compromised or influenced by political forces, it will be difficult for the government to hold corrupt officials accountable. For Sierra Leone to tackle corruption effectively, it must ensure that its judicial system is strong, independent, and capable of handling complex corruption cases. This involves providing adequate training for judges and prosecutors, ensuring that the judiciary is free from political interference, and improving the efficiency of the court system. Cases of corruption often take years to resolve due to delays in the judicial process, which undermines public confidence in the legal system. By improving the speed and efficiency of the courts, Sierra Leone can ensure that corruption cases are resolved in a timely manner, sending a clear message that corruption will not go unpunished. Furthermore, the judiciary should play an active role in overseeing the activities of public officials and ensure that they comply with anti-corruption laws. By monitoring government activities and holding public officials accountable, the judiciary can help to create a culture of transparency and integrity within government institutions. The role of the judiciary in Sierra Leone cannot be overstated. A strong, independent, and efficient judicial system is fundamental to the country's ability to tackle corruption and ensure that public officials act in the best interests of the people. With the right reforms and support, the judiciary can become a key player in Sierra Leone's fight against corruption, restoring public confidence in the legal system and safeguarding the country's future. The road ahead for Sierra Leone. As Sierra Leone faces this critical moment in its fight against corruption, the Kaifala case offers both a challenge and an opportunity for systemic change. The road to a more transparent and accountable government will require a concerted effort from all sectors of society. From the political leadership to civil society organizations, the media, and the judiciary, each actor has a role to play in ensuring that corruption is eliminated from public life. While the challenges are significant, there is reason for hope. By embracing reforms, strengthening institutions, and promoting transparency, Sierra Leone has the potential to build a more just and democratic society. The country can become a leader in anti-corruption efforts in Africa, setting an example for others to follow. As the investigation into the Kaifala case continues, it is crucial that the government take decisive action to hold those responsible accountable, while also ensuring that the broader systemic changes needed to combat corruption are implemented. Only through sustained efforts, both in the courts and in the broader institutions of government, can Sierra Leone truly achieve the transparency, accountability, and justice that its people deserve. The role of technology in enhancing transparency and fighting corruption. One of the most promising avenues for Sierra Leone in its fight against corruption is the integration of technology into governance processes. Technology has the potential to revolutionize how the government operates, increasing transparency, improving accountability, and ensuring that corruption is harder to hide. In recent years, digital platforms have been used in many countries to increase government transparency and combat corruption. Sierra Leone could benefit from adopting digital solutions that allow for greater access to information regarding government spending, public contracts, and the allocation of resources. Online platforms that track government contracts and financial transactions could make it more difficult for officials to divert public funds for personal gain. Furthermore, such platforms would allow citizens to report corruption or mismanagement directly to authorities, ensuring a more robust system of accountability. The use of technology could also be integrated into the monitoring and evaluation of public projects. Many infrastructure and development projects in Sierra Leone suffer from poor oversight, leading to cost overruns, delays, and misuse of funds. By using digital systems to track project progress and spending in real time, the government can ensure that resources are allocated correctly and that projects are completed efficiently. This would also make it easier for citizens and civil society organizations to hold the government accountable for its commitments. Moreover, Sierra Leone could leverage data analytics to identify patterns of corruption or mismanagement in various sectors. By analyzing large data sets related to government spending, procurement processes, and public services, the government can detect anomalies that may indicate corrupt activities. This technology-driven approach would provide a powerful tool for detecting and preventing corruption before it becomes entrenched. In addition to improving transparency within the government, technology could be used to enhance the capacity of the Anti-Corruption Commission, ACC. Digital tools could streamline investigations, enhance data collection and management, and help the ACC identify trends in corruption cases more efficiently. Implementing these technological advancements would significantly strengthen the ACC's ability to combat corruption and provide a more transparent process for the public. A regional perspective. Sierra Leone and Africa's anti-corruption movement. Sierra Leone's efforts to combat corruption are not occurring in isolation, but are part of a larger regional movement in Africa to address corruption and strengthen governance. Across the continent, many African nations are grappling with similar challenges related to corruption, including political patronage, misuse of public funds, and the concentration of power within the political elite. However, countries such as Rwanda, Botswana, and Ghana have made notable strides in the fight against corruption, providing valuable lessons for Sierra Leone. Rwanda, for example, has been widely praised for its efforts to curb corruption, particularly through its focus on transparency, public service reform, and citizen engagement. The country's anti-corruption strategies include mandatory asset declarations for public officials, a robust public procurement system, and a strong political commitment to zero tolerance for corruption. These efforts have led to significant improvements in Rwanda's governance and have fostered greater public trust in its institutions. Botswana has also emerged as one of Africa's least corrupt countries, consistently ranking high on Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index. Botswana's success can be attributed to its strong legal framework, independent judiciary, and a culture of accountability. The country's Anti-Corruption Commission operates with relative independence, and public officials are held to strict ethical standards. By building on these successes, Sierra Leone can look to Botswana's example to strengthen its own anti-corruption framework. Ghana is another example of a country that has made significant progress in the fight against corruption. Ghana's success has been largely attributed to its commitment to democratic governance, public sector reform, and improved transparency in public procurement. Ghana has also taken steps to address the grand corruption that involves high-ranking officials, an area that Sierra Leone must focus on in its own efforts to address corruption within the political elite. While these examples from across Africa offer important lessons, they also highlight the challenges that Sierra Leone faces in combating corruption. Africa's anti-corruption movement is still in its early stages, and despite progress in some countries, the continent continues to struggle with pervasive corruption that hampers development and undermines democratic institutions. Sierra Leone's experience, particularly with the Kaifala case, offers a unique opportunity for the country to become a leader in Africa's anti-corruption movement. By strengthening institutions, engaging civil society, and using technology to improve governance, Sierra Leone can position itself as an example for other African nations struggling with corruption. The role of international aid and development partners. International aid and development partners play a crucial role in supporting Sierra Leone's anti-corruption initiatives. These organizations can provide much-needed funding, technical expertise, and capacity building to help the country strengthen its governance structures. However, this support must be accompanied by a commitment to ensure that funds are used effectively and transparently, and that development projects align with the needs of the local population. Sierra Leone has benefited from international aid in the past, particularly following the end of the Civil War in 2002. This aid has been vital in rebuilding the country's infrastructure, health system, and education sector. However, the continued challenge of corruption has sometimes hindered the effective use of these resources. To improve the impact of international aid, there needs to be greater accountability in how funds are allocated and spent. Development partners must work with the government and civil society to ensure that projects are implemented transparently and that the public can track how resources are being used. One way to achieve this is by including transparency clauses in development contracts, ensuring that foreign aid is subject to the same scrutiny as domestic government spending. Additionally, development partners should focus on building local capacity to combat corruption, helping Sierra Leone develop the skills and knowledge necessary to fight corruption in the long term. International actors, including foreign governments and multilateral organizations, can also leverage their influence to push for reforms within Sierra Leone's government. By tying aid and investment to tangible progress in anti-corruption measures, international partners can incentivize the government to prioritize transparency and accountability. This approach ensures that foreign support is used to drive genuine change, rather than being wasted on projects that do not meet the needs of the population. Education and youth. Engagement in the fight against corruption. Sierra Leone's future depends on its youth, and engaging young people in the fight against corruption is crucial for ensuring long-term change. Young people, particularly students, are the next generation of leaders and policymakers, and they must be equipped with the knowledge and skills to challenge corruption and promote transparency. Incorporating anti-corruption education into school curricula can help foster a generation of citizens who understand the importance of integrity, accountability, and good governance. By teaching children from a young age about the negative impact of corruption and the importance of transparency, Sierra Leone can build a culture of ethical leadership that will permeate every level of society. Youth engagement in the fight against corruption should not be limited to education alone. Young people must also be given the opportunity to actively participate in governance and decision-making processes. This could include supporting youth-led anti-corruption campaigns, providing young people with platforms to voice their concerns about government accountability, and ensuring that they have access to the resources needed to monitor public spending. Moreover, the government should consider involving youth in the reform process itself. Young people bring fresh perspectives and innovative ideas to the table, and their involvement can help ensure that anti-corruption measures reflect the needs of society. By empowering the next generation of leaders, Sierra Leone can create a more transparent, inclusive, and prosperous future for the country. A collective effort for a transparent Sierra Leone. The fight against corruption in Sierra Leone is a complex, multifaceted challenge that requires the collective efforts of the government, civil society, the media, and the international community. The ongoing case against Ben Kaifala presents an important opportunity for the country to strengthen its anti-corruption framework and make meaningful progress toward achieving transparent governance. While Sierra Leone faces significant obstacles in its fight against corruption, it also has the potential to be a leader in Africa's anti-corruption movement. By strengthening institutions, empowering civil society, leveraging technology, and engaging the youth, Sierra Leone can create a more transparent, accountable government that serves the best interests of its people. As the country moves forward, it is crucial that all stakeholders, government, civil society, the media, and international partners remain committed to the fight against corruption. Only through a united, sustained effort can Sierra Leone build a brighter future for its citizens, one that is free from the shackles of corruption and characterized by fairness, justice, and opportunity for all. Strengthening democratic institutions and governance. To sustain anti-corruption efforts and ensure a stable democratic future, Sierra Leone and other African nations must invest heavily in strengthening democratic institutions. Building resilient institutions that can withstand political pressure is essential for promoting good governance. One key area for strengthening democratic processes is the electoral system. Free, fair, and transparent elections are fundamental to ensuring that leaders are chosen based on merit and not political manipulation or corruption. In Sierra Leone, efforts should be focused on improving the independence and credibility of the Electoral Commission, ensuring that elections are not rigged or manipulated by powerful political players. This requires not only structural reforms, but also cultural changes within the political elite. Leaders must prioritize national unity over personal or party interests and make long-term decisions that benefit the country rather than themselves or their immediate circle. In addition, political party reforms are necessary to curtail the influence of patronage and election-related corruption. Political parties should be required to disclose funding sources and adhere to strict financial transparency regulations. Implementing campaign finance reforms can curb the use of illicit funds in politics, thus making the political environment more competitive and transparent. Collaboration for long-term change. A continental approach. Sierra Leone's challenges are not unique. They are shared across many African countries, where corruption undermines the legitimacy of democratic processes and hinders economic growth. The fight against corruption requires a collaborative continental approach, where African leaders work together to create shared solutions. This cooperation can come in the form of policy dialogues, joint initiatives to recover stolen assets, and harmonization of anti-corruption laws across the continent. Through the African Union, AU, African nations can foster a culture of accountability, share best practices, and hold each other to higher standards. Regional organizations like the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, also play a vital role in monitoring governance practices, especially about elections and leadership transitions. By building stronger regional cooperation, African nations can set a unified front in tackling corruption, ensuring that no country or leader is an exception. One of the key lessons for Africa is that no country can combat corruption in isolation. Corruption is a transnational issue, often facilitated by global financial networks and illicit cross-border transactions. African countries must work together with international partners to create a unified response that disrupts these global corrupt practices and ensures that corrupt officials do not find sanctuary abroad. Advice to African leaders: leading with integrity. As African leaders continue their efforts to tackle corruption, it is crucial that they lead by example and uphold the highest standards of integrity. Leadership is about service, not self-interest, and African leaders must understand that their duty is to their people, not their political party or personal wealth. Leaders must prioritize the welfare of their citizens over political or economic gain. This means making difficult decisions, such as enforcing the rule of law without bias, even when it involves members of their own political party or inner circle. Leaders must be willing to hold corrupt officials accountable, irrespective of their position, and work towards building a more equitable and just society. The legacy of African leaders will not be determined by how much wealth they accumulate or how long they remain in power, but by the lasting impact they have on their nation's development, prosperity, and integrity. Leaders must remember that history will judge them not just by the promises they make, but by the actions they take in the fight against corruption. Furthermore, leaders must recognize the power of youth in shaping the future of the continent. Investing in education, empowerment, and participation of young people is crucial for building sustainable democracies and ensuring that future leaders are equipped with the knowledge and values to uphold good governance. By creating opportunities for youth engagement, African leaders can lay the groundwork for a more transparent and accountable future. Summary of key messages. The fight against corruption in Sierra Leone and across Africa is not just a legal or political issue, it is a matter of national and continental survival. Corruption undermines governance, stifles economic growth, and erodes public trust. To address these challenges, Sierra Leone must strengthen its institutions, ensure transparency, and engage civil society in its efforts. The integration of technology, the protection of press freedom, and the empowerment of grassroots movements are essential components of this fight. Moreover, collaboration across African countries and the global community is crucial in addressing the systemic nature of corruption. African leaders must take proactive steps to promote democracy, rule of law, and accountability, ensuring that they lead with integrity and put the interests of their citizens first. By building a culture of accountability and transparency, Sierra Leone can serve as a model for other African nations facing similar challenges. Finally, for Africa to truly break free from the cycle of corruption, leaders must understand that they are stewards of their nation's futures. They must act with courage, integrity, and vision, not only for their generation, but for generations to come. The road ahead is not easy, but with collective effort, commitment, and leadership, Africa can overcome corruption and create a brighter, more prosperous future for all its people. African leaders can turn this moment of crisis into a moment of profound transformation. The world is watching, and the time for change is now. Let this be the beginning of a new chapter for Sierra Leone and the entire African continent, a chapter defined by transparency, accountability, and unwavering commitment to justice. Thanks for watching this in-depth analysis of the ongoing property fraud scandal involving Sierra Leone's Anti-Corruption Commissioner. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Bold African Voice, BAV, for more critical analysis of African politics and governance. Be sure to share this video and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on the stories that matter. Stay bold, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next video.